Thanks for watching a new video blog. Today from Buenos Aires in Argentina. I remember that in my early 20s I went for the first time back to Turkey again. I was there when I was 17, but at that time I wasn't really paying attention to social developments, history. I was more living for skateboarding and music. But when I went back to Turkey at the age of 23, I suddenly realized, by looking around me in Turkey, that they had not have any of the cultural revolutions that we had in the Netherlands, or maybe in a broader sense, in Europe, mainly Western Europe. And I realized this the first time that I went back to Turkey. I could see that everything was much more traditional, like the Netherlands in the 1950s, before the revolution of feminism, before the sexual revolution, before the rebellion in pop music against family, and so many other revolutions that took place from the 1960s. The movement against authority, the movement against religion, for example. All these revolutions have never happened in Turkey. And I could see that immediately. I saw traditional families, father, mother, children, and there was no sign of any feminism, there was no sign of any rebellion from the children towards the parents. The children were obedient, they wouldn't even think about going against the parents because the parents took care of them. Also in Turkey there is less help from the government, so that is also another sort of revolution, that people depend more on family than on the government. And I could see this all in the Turkey of, 2004. Now the last time that I went to Turkey was this year, 2025, and I could clearly see that it already changed more than in 2004. I could see that there is some cultural Marxism now in Turkey, but still not a lot. But I realized in 2004, when I was there, that the cultural revolutions were super local. Only United States, Europe, maybe Australia, New Zealand, those are the countries that are affected by that way of thinking, by cultural Marxism. I didn't see this in Turkey at all, and I realized how little this revolution actually is, because Turkey is a gigantic country. And it also, of course, weakened the whole cultural Marxistic ideology. And I was never a fan of it, because I am traditional, orthodox, I love nature, love family, so I don't have anything with this ideology. But it made me see and realize that it's actually very local, mainly in the West. And it's not that strong, because there are many countries resisting this, or not even opening the doors for ideologies like that. They don't have Marxist teachers in school, they don't have cultural Marxist media, they don't let these influencers, or I call them rather magicians, into their country. Maybe these magicians don't even want to enter the country, it's also possible. But it is good to see that your way of thinking, because maybe you are somebody that believes in those ideologies, that it's just super local, very small, limited, and also connected to an era from the 1960s. Before that, the Netherlands was also traditional, just like Turkey. There was no difference. Religion, super important. The family, super important. Authority was still there, still intact. You were required to dress traditionally and decently. And this all changed in the 1960s. When through the media, through schools, influencers, political thinkers, they embraced the cultural Marxistic ideology and start to spread it. The magicians start to play with their words so that people would fall for their spell. It is from those days that we can see that the Netherlands and the West, in a broader sense, changed. From that moment, the 1960s, they started to break down the family by feminism, by undermining the role of the father, the role of the man in general, children rebelling against the family, thinking that, teaching them that you can also grow up in a commune, like the hippies, that marriage is slavery, and all that nonsense. And later, of course, they start to undermine the role of tradition, of religion, of course, in the 1960s, of culture. They start to talk down all forms of culture, of national identity. These things didn't happen in Turkey and still are not happening. Turkish identity is based upon being a Turk, mostly being a Muslim. Family, the role of the male is very important, is dominant. You are expected to carry yourself in a traditional way. Maybe less than in the past, but still more than in the West. So that made me realize, when I was visiting Turkey, that these ideologies are so brainwashed into our Western brains. So for that reason, I can recommend you to travel to those countries, to travel to Turkey, or maybe better Oman. I really enjoy Oman as an example of a country that is super pleasant to be, super friendly people, and they're more traditional in my sense, because they dress super traditionally, the buildings are super traditionally, and I can highly recommend you to visit these countries. Go to Turkey, go to Georgia, go to Oman, go to Poland, any country that wasn't part of the cultural Marxistic revolutions of the 1960s and later on. And you can see what a great countries they are to be. Safe, stable, maybe the economy is not as great always as here, but what does that matter? How important is an economy if you don't feel safe, if there's no stability, if there's mass immigration also something that you don't see in any of those countries. Maybe Dubai is an exception, but it's not really a country. But you can see in those countries, you can visit those countries and see that people still live without these cultural Marxistic revolutions. They still do fine, they do better. They have a great country, everything is clear, the divorce rates are low, depression is much lower than in the West. Addiction is non-existent, doesn't exist in those countries. Barely anybody is addicted to anything. So, to visit those countries. Maybe start with Turkey, then go to Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, all those countries. Great examples of countries that didn't have these cultural Marxistic revolutions. So it was for today. From Buenos Aires, Argentina, I say thank you for watching. See you next time.
Argentina, Argentina, tierra del sol, pero las flores están secas, los campos son desiertos. ¿Por qué estás muriendo? ¿Por qué estás muriendo? por sobrevivir.